Segment of the day for Women's Equality Day. I'm here with my friend and representative, Assemblywoman Carrie Warner. And if you don't know who she is, well, shame on you.
No, really, it's my responsibility to make sure people know who I am and that I know who they are.
Okay, so tell us who you are, and I want to know, I know how you got all into the politics, and it makes total sense to me, but tell everyone who doesn't know how long you've been in office, what you know, I know you represent me, but it's not all about me.
Well,
so
kind of.
So who do you represent, how long you've been in office, and how you got started?
Okay, so I'm Carrie Warner. I represent the 113th Assembly District in the New York State Assembly, which is 16 communities, 8 in Washington County and 8 in Saratoga County, the largest of which is Saratoga Springs, where we are sitting today. My background is not in government. I grew up in the high-tech industry. So I started my career back in the 80s, working for IBM, a woman in a man's profession. And I did okay in that role. I went up the ladder. I've worked for large companies, for small companies. And at about 30 years, I thought, I need to do something different. And I live in this wonderful village of Round Lake, down at Exit 11. And I was serving on the village board at the time and also on the Malta Planning Board. And really felt like there was so much going on and that we needed to have more active representation in the state legislature. And so after complaining about it for a while, some friend of mine said, you know, either run or shut up because you're getting a little boring. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to run. And I went to the Women's Campaign School at Yale to learn how to run a campaign. I had no idea how one, you know, what a campaign was or how one did it. And the first thing they told us in the week's program was, listen, men and women run for office for the first time in equal numbers, and they lose in their first race in equal numbers. But the reason we have more men than women in elected office is because men sort of slough that loss off and say, you know, I'll try again. And women say, oh, they don't like me. I'm gonna go do something else. And so their point to me was, listen, if you're serious about this, be serious about doing it twice. And so I lost the first time, and I went back and did it again, and I won.
Wow, so that's like such a like learning curve that you have to learn the hard way, right? So how did you surround yourself with people who like kept you motivated, encouraged, like, you know, fall down 7, get up 8, like, you know, what kept you running again?
You know, I think what kept me running again was the same thing that motivated me to begin with, which is that I really believe that government needs to work for people and that government needed to work for our region. You know, I've been in office 7 years, so 9 years ago, Global Foundries was just kind of getting started. Our farmers were really struggling. Milk prices were down. Tourism was great, but that only goes so far. So we were really, you know, we were doing well, but we really needed some help. We needed some more focus. We needed more resources brought into our communities. Some of our smaller towns with beautiful downtowns like Schuylerville or Hudson Falls really weren't getting any kind of help or attention. And I thought, I can do this. I can be that person. So what motivated me to start with kept me going.
Yeah, like just that there was more work to be done and the people that were in office weren't doing enough or the right way or your way.
Exactly. And, you know, the district is 135,000 people. And I think, you know, what I thought about was that part of people want to vote for somebody they know and somebody they like. And after one run, not enough people had gotten to know me. So it was about just continuing to be visible and engaged in the community, go to one more pancake breakfast, one more chicken dinner, one more fair or festival, and meet as many people as I could, knock on all the doors, and really start to get to know communities at the neighborhood level, at the family level, and build an understanding of how these communities and these people needed to be supported at the state level.
So it seems like a big feat, right? Like all the things that you're responsible for and all the people, individuals that you represent. So to take us through like a day in the life. I mean, is it a lot of, you know, the pancake breakfasts and the knocking on the doors and the talking to the neighbors? And how much of it is like just gut-wrenching, stress. And obviously the pandemic brought a whole new life to that. But, I can kind of tell you from my perspective, I'll never run for office. I just think it's so much work, and it's sometimes a thankless job. And a lot of times you don't hear about all the success that you're bringing to your community. You only hear about the heartache. They come to you when they need you, or and I think you do such a great job of being available to everyone. I mean, I know personally, and maybe I'm a little more ballsy than your everyday, citizen. But I mean, I call you whenever I want to, and you pick up the phone, and I feel like I can have a conversation with you, and that's obviously what we want in our leaders, So tell us, like, kind of how you view like a day in the life. Is it a lot of meetings, or how are you kicking the ball up the field?
So it's a mix of meetings with businesses, calls with constituents, events that give me an opportunity to go meet with people who are engaged in a common issue. Like earlier this week, I went to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation fundraiser, which is all about two things. It's all about providing a second chance for the horses, but their prime program is called the Second Chances Program, where they put a herd at a state correctional facility, and they offer an opportunity for the inmates to build skills in working with horses so that they can get jobs in the equine industry once they have served their period of incarceration. So it's second chances for the horses and second chances for the inmates. And it's a terrific program. Going to that event, I have an opportunity to listen to what people talk about in terms of how are things going with the equine industry? How are they, what are the issues? What are the struggles around thoroughbred retirement? What are the issues that we need to be worried about? And I get a lot of education from that, just in conversation with people. So I do events like that. I've got a meeting this afternoon with the fellow from Stewart's who's really engaged in their renewable energy issues. So we're going to be talking about the charging stations at Stewart's, because as we think about electric vehicles and how do we get more people driving electric vehicles and shifting away from fossil fuels, well, you've got to have the infrastructure that allow people to charge their car just the way we fuel up now. And I don't have a garage, so I couldn't plug an EV into my house. I need Stewart's to have, or something like Stewart's to have, EV charging stations wherever I drive. So I have those kinds of meetings as well to really build both an understanding of the issue and the impediments, but also to move the agenda forward.
And speaking of infrastructure, that's like such a hot topic right now when it comes to, and obviously I feel like my infrastructure is maybe a bit more intangible. Like I need a support system of people, and I need those types of resources. And my solution to the gas and the fossil fuels is to just ride a bike, or live in an urban area where you don't have to get into a car and drive from work to home, or remote working. There's like so many alternative solutions that seem like a more immediate solution than to have this like bigger, larger picture of infrastructure. And you have to have the weigh in from the government. And this is another thing too. It's like I don't like to rely on the public, the government, big government, to tell me how to do anything really.
Right.
I feel like the private sector, where things get done,
yes.
That's where it's demonstrated. Our small business community, and again, we saw all that during COVID. How really small business owners and local leaders were the ones who kind of took the lead, and while everyone else kind of like were somewhat paralyzed at a lot of times.
Yeah.
So. And then infrastructure. I mean, what are your thoughts? And coming, you obviously know more about the federal packages that are in the communications that's happening, conversations, dialogue around this. So, what do you see coming down the pipeline as far as infrastructure goes? And how do you foster that dialogue with your local community?
Well, I think I have to say I haven't read the federal bill around infrastructure, so I wouldn't say I'm an expert at what the federal package is. But what I do talk about with my communities are that there is money coming. We're going from a time of scarcity to a time of abundance. And we need to be prepared for for that, because while the money is going to increase, it's not going to be available forever. So for communities like Salem, which needs a public sewer system, needs a municipal sewer system. It has a very high water table, and everybody is on septic systems, which fail on a regular basis. And it's really keeping the ability to open a small business. Like a Pallet could never open there because they can't have cafes. And those are the kinds of businesses that make a community successful. It's what supports growth in the business sector, but it also supports growth in the residential sector. So they are laying the groundwork to be ready when the money is available to say, hey, we need this money because we're going to build this infrastructure. Here's what it looks like. Here's how much it's going to cost. This is how it's engineered. So I work with the communities to say, be ready, let's get going. And, broadband is one of those things which has, Saratoga Springs doesn't really have a broadband lack, but get outside of Saratoga Springs, even in Wilton, Stillwater, you start to see a lack of high-speed broadband that can support a family working from home, studying from home, all of the things that became necessary on a moment's notice a year ago March. So we as a state need to be ready for the money. We're going to go from scarcity to abundance pretty fast. So we need to be ready. We need to have better maps. We need to have maps that don't just map the unserved, but also the underserved, because if all you can get is dial-up, that's not good enough. If all you can get is 25 down and 3 up, that's 25 megabits down and 3 up, that's not going to be good enough. There's that underserved. So we need to have good maps that are accurate, so that we are ready to take that money and direct it to places that need it. And likewise, we have created this regulatory framework that makes the expansion of broadband extremely expensive, much more expensive than other states. So I've been working on legislation. We got one bill passed this past year to try and remove those regulatory restrictions. We've got a few more teed up for next year to try and just jumpstart the movement for high-speed broadband, getting communities ready by having better maps, but then also making sure that every dollar we get goes as far as possible. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that, from an infrastructure perspective, is sort of how I bridge from what the federal government is going to be providing to what our communities need.
Okay, so now I'm going to switch gears because I'm incredibly excited about our new governor. And, part of your job is being the bridge between the local communities and the governor's office. So, do you call her Madam Governor when you're talking to her now?
I just refer to her as governor, just like I did with the prior governor.
Yeah. So tell us, are you as excited as I am about?
I am completely excited. I am excited about the fact that we have a woman in the executive chamber, but more importantly, I'm excited that we have this particular woman in the executive chamber. Kathy Hochul, when she was lieutenant governor, traveled all over the state. We saw her in the 113th Assembly District countless times. She's very, very engaged in what's happening in our communities, what the needs are, very much a hands-on kind of person. And with her background as both an upstater, but working at every level of government. She started out on a town board and has sort of worked in every level of government. She has, I think, a really innate appreciation of what our communities are all about. But I think she also has kind of an innate appreciation for the role of government. You were talking earlier about the private sector is where it's all happening, and that's absolutely true. But when we think about, let's go back to my EV charging stations. In the private sector, you go from early adopters of new technology to mainstream adoption. And there's a path. And it's sort of a well-documented economic model that you can pick up. At business school, we learned about it. But if you want to accelerate it, if you want to go quickly from early adopters to mainstream, you need something to help the acceleration. And in some sectors, that's venture capital. And in some sectors, that's going to be government investment. But it's about accelerating a trend to move business forward. And I think that she understands that. And her work with the regional economic development councils I think really showed her where the investments are being made, where the investments are not being made and need to be. So I'm really excited about this particular person being that first woman governor.
Yeah, and I also she's so likable, you know, like you watch her on interviews and stuff, and you know, I have to be honest, I haven't followed her career, but just like watching her, I don't know if I'm just like in love with her, or she's just a likable, positive, you know, and just seems so accessible and comfortable to speak to. Like I feel like, you know, like you, like I can just pick up the phone and call her, and hey Kathy, let's get to work here, you know. And I also think it's, for me, I feel like, you know, she's a mom, she's a woman, she's tapped into the local economy, and then I also feel like she's not a New York City person. You know, she is our kind of people, and she's gonna be the voice for the rest of the state of New York.
I feel that's true. I think, you know, her background is from Buffalo, so she's not unfamiliar with urban issues, but she's also familiar with suburban and rural issues as well. So she has that broad spectrum appreciation of different kinds of communities and different contexts, and how they are similar and how they differ. And I think that sort of nuanced understanding is what we have been missing in this state. And I'm really excited to see her get to work.
Yeah, you know, my personal opinion is that women do lead better than men. You know, no offense to the emotionally evolved men that we have in the crowd here, but we are multifaceted, multi-passionate. We can multitask. We can be really great listeners and also really good doers. We don't have the ego, and I just think those are all things that she's going to be able to demonstrate in a position that we haven't seen that in a while. You know, like, I mean, even with our last governor, it's like, okay, stop talking about yourself and get to work and do the things that we really need to improve and progress. And I think what's important about her and her new position is that she's really going to be able to, you know, get out of the media with all this like drama and get back to work, and what governing and leading is what we need.
I think her first address to the state, 11 minutes long, there wasn't a spare word in the entire thing. You know, she had a message to deliver, she delivered it, and then she got off. And you know, that to me is just a really strong statement about who she is and how she approaches things. Like, let's just roll up our sleeves. Let's get to work. Let's not waste time grandstanding. Let's just go. And I like that. That's how I try to be as well. And so I am excited. I'm optimistic. I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so what when you are speaking to the public, I mean, what would you say? I mean, we're talking to the World Wide Web here. Everyone on LinkedIn, hello, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. What message do you have for, you know, the general public, your constituents, about the future? You know, I feel like we are going into the fall season, and I think there is a little nervousness about the continued impact of COVID. But I'm hopeful. You know, I feel like we are able to gather still. We're able to do these things safely, and I guess maybe I'm naive, but I do tend to look to the positive and all the things that we can do to come out of this stronger.
I'm with you, Catherine. I tend to focus on the positive and on what we can do and not what we can't do. I think that my hope is that what people recognize is that we are stronger together, that when we all work in a collaborative fashion to address the needs of our neighborhoods, our communities, we do better. And that let's focus on the things that bring us together and not the things that tear us apart. And this has been just a really unsettling time for so many people for a variety of reasons, whether that's economic uncertainty or healthcare uncertainty, or just the challenge of sending your kids to school and then not knowing if you're going to get that call that says, oh, you got to come pick them up because they've got to be quarantined for 2 weeks, and what that means, the ripple effects that has. And, it's just been a great time of uncertainty and being unsettled. And I think for all of us, that's kind of worked hard on our psyche. And we've got to, swallow hard, stand up tall, breathe deeply, put a smile on our face, and say, how can I help you? What can I do to make your burden easier. And people in return will say, how can I make your burden easier? And I think that that's, I just hope that as we move forward, because it's going to be another stretch this fall where when we switch from being able to be outside and doing events like this to where we're inside, that's what happened last time, was that gatherings switched to the indoors, and that gave the virus another platform to grow on. We're going to be, we're probably going to have another one of those. So let's just take a deep breath. Let's just do what we need to do to protect ourselves and our families. Let's help everybody else, and move forward together. And we're going to be fine.
Yeah, I've been saying this a lot. Like, it's like everyone just needs to brace themselves for impact. Find the people, find the things that you need to do, meditation and gathering. Just the support systems that you need to carry through this, because it may get more difficult before it gets. We're not out of the woods yet. That's just reality.
But over the last 15, 18 months, we built some tools. We've built some tools to be more resilient. We've built some tools to be able to address this. Ways to deal with our own emotional challenges, to deal with the challenges of our family members and our friends, and to just keep moving forward. And it's going to take, our resources to do that, no question. But we are in a great spot. We live in a beautiful community. We have, the economic numbers are great in our region. Everybody talks about how people are fleeing from upstate. Well, they're not fleeing from Saratoga County. They're not fleeing from Washington County. We're doing well. Schuylerville looks great. Hudson Falls is terrific. Greenwich is booming. Saratoga Springs is doing really well. All of our communities are on track to have some of the best years economically that they've had. And that means that there's people working. That means that people are buying houses. They're investing in their homes. They're doing well. And we've got to get our kids back to school, because the education disruption has been really, really challenging, I think, for a lot of our kids. So we need to get the kids back to school, and learning again in a positive environment. And so, but I think we're going to get there.
Yeah, and I think there's actually a local school district meeting tonight, right?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure someone asked me to go and speak on behalf of my opinions of going back to school, and obviously I'm here all day, celebrating Women's Equality Day. But while I have the mic, I would like to just go ahead and say I would much rather my kids be in school wearing a mask than being remote learning. So I don't think it's really up for debate anymore at this point. But yeah, it's like kids need to be in school.
Kids need to be in school. My hope is that the schools will, and I think they will, at least from all the conversations I've had with school superintendents across the district, that they understand that it is challenging for all of us to sit in a mask all day long, and we need some breaks. So, give the kids some breaks, make it a fun experience for them, so that they're learning, they're with their friends, they get the social reinforcement that helps on so many levels. And we can start to really make sure that our kids are prepared when they leave school eventually to take on a role in the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter is 7. She's going into 2nd grade, and I remember last school year she would come home and still have a mask on. It's like she forgot to take it off. Our kids are so resilient and flexible and adaptable, and it's just, I think it comes from what we're talking about at home. Like, we're wearing a mask because this is protecting everyone. None of our kids are vaccinated yet, so we have to do anything that we need to, or advised to do, guided to do, to protect them. And I think for me, it's very simple. She's going to school and she's wearing a mask, whether it's mandated or not. So let's switch gears. I want to ask you, because this is Women's Equality Day. We're celebrating the women's 101 years of having the right to vote. Can you remember the first time you voted or registered to vote? Was it a big to do for you?
Yes, I was. My first election was 1980, and I was a freshman in college. So I had to get an absentee ballot, and I remember getting it and filling it out. It was, I love voting. I think voting is great, and I don't know why anybody doesn't vote.
Does it shock you when you meet somebody who's just registering to vote or anything like that? I mean, I can remember when I was growing up, it's like, you know, when I turned 18, it was such a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, we were going to go. I remember my dad took me, and I remember him saying, like, this is freedom. You get the chance to decide who gets to represent you, and your vote does count.
Yeah.
So when I meet people, you know, who are my age or even older, who kind of said, oh, no, I'm not registered. You know, I just, you know, it's not a big deal. I mean, I just, at this point, even after the last just, you know, dramatic elections that we've experienced together, it blows my mind. It's actually very frustrating for me. With that being said, we're going to have a registration. League of Women Voters is going to be here, so you can come and register to vote if you'd like to. No shame, but how do you kind of manage that, you know, especially as an elected official, when you can think like, what are the percentages? Like half 50% of people actually vote?
I think that it varies on the type of election. So, you know, certainly at a presidential election, we have a higher percentage of people who turn out to vote. When it's just a local year, very low, very much lower percentages. I don't remember off the top of my head what the exact percentages are. But one of the things that I think we've come to realize is that in today's world with busy lives, we need to provide a broad spectrum way for people to vote. So for some, that is, I want to be able to just do an absentee ballot. I don't know whether I'm going to be in town or not. I don't know what's going to be going on. I want to vote. Let me just get an absentee ballot. I'll vote and then I'll be done with it. For others, it's, I don't want to cast an absentee ballot. I want to cast a vote in person. But you know what? Tuesdays are really busy for me. So I want to be able to vote on a Saturday. I want to be able to vote on the Friday night prior. So having early voting and making that possible. And we saw that in the election, the last election, is that when you open up the opportunities for people to vote, more people come and vote. And so I think that's just a reflection of, we've got a different, you know, the world is different today than it was when the election day was established as the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. You know, like, it seems random. What actually was a reason for that, but whatever. Like, times have changed. So let's respond to that. Let's do something different. And you know, we in the legislature, we are committed to trying to remove the barriers to voting for people who are registered to vote and eligible to vote. And I'm excited about the changes that we've made, and I'm hopeful that we'll see an increase in voter participation in this November's election, and in next November's election, that we will continue to see increases in voter participation until we get to a place where we're almost at 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the local level, I find, is more important to me personally than the president. I remember when I grew up, I used to always think like, oh, the president doesn't matter. I mean, like, he doesn't know me, he doesn't represent me, and you know, he doesn't, you know, he's got bigger problems, bigger fish to fry, if you will. Right. Where in the local level, you know, and as a small business owner, I have never been more engaged with the local leadership, economy, and vocal. I have been very vocal recently, just about the things that we really need changed or done or implemented, and it's just so easy. I mean, I'm originally from New Orleans. I moved here 10 years ago. The base level of opportunity is so different than where I grew up. You know, so living in Saratoga Springs, having multiple businesses here, and also in Schenectady, it's like, I see the possibilities of evolution and adaptation and ways to make it better and change. It just seems so much more easier in a community like Saratoga, or as in a region like the Capital Region. And so for me, I just think like, oh my God, we're right here at the goal line. You have to speak up. You have to speak to your leaders. You have to make sure that they know where you stand, so they can best advocate for you and represent you and do the work that you know, you basically set out to do here.
Absolutely. You know, the most impactful government is the government that is closest to the people. So if you are, you know, if you're going to vote in any election, vote in your local election, because the policies that get enacted at the local level are the ones that impact you each and every day. The higher up you go, the more it's a more abstract impact. and it's a much more diffused impact. Not that it's, not that policies at the federal level don't either benefit us or negatively impact us. They do, but it's more diffused than the organization that ensures that roads are plowed, or that you can have outdoor patio seating to support your business, or that that mandates that you have awnings over your windows. Like, those things are much more immediate, and having a city council that is reflective of the community and has got a vision for the community that's consistent with yours is really important, and it's much more impactful on a day-to-day basis than what I do, or what Congressman Tonko does, or what President Joe Biden does. So every level of government has its impact, but at the local level is the greatest impact.
And what's so cool about Saratoga Springs is you can literally just go across the street and go see the mayor, go see one of my favorite, people in City Hall right now is our Chief Deputy of Commissioner of Accounts. And I love her. She's the sweetest, and hopefully she sticks around for the next election, because she's been so helpful to me. I mean, that entire department has been so helpful to me, especially being able to permit this outdoor seating that we're sitting in now. I'm hoping that it'll continue.
I hope so, because it's so beautiful.
Well, this is one of the things that I think was a positive impact of COVID, right? Like, why do away with this just because the virus goes away? I think that's just my 2 cents.
Well,
and it's frustrating because every 2 years, the local leaders have to rerun. So there's a lot of it's almost like a marathon. You have to build this relationship, and there have been times already in my experience where it's like, it's such a great relationship with somebody, and then they're leaving. So you just have to build up the relationship again, and it can be exhausting.
It can be. On the other hand, I think when the voters get a chance every 2 years to say, you're doing a good job, or we think it's time for you to move on, it is a way to make sure that you are accountable, and that you're doing the things that matter, and that you're doing them in a way that people are positively impacted. So I think that's, I think as much as I have to say it is a drag to have to run every 2 years, I understand why we do it, and I think it's, there's some good that comes out of it.
Yeah. So do we have any questions from the audience in person? No? We're all just doing a great job up here, right? Do you have any last words of wisdom you'd like to embark on us today?
I would just like to say, Catherine, once again, thank you so much for creating community, for bringing us together as women to celebrate Women's Equality Day. Here in New York, we're doing better than the national average. In New York State, women earn 88 cents for every dollar that men earn. Not perfect, but we're better than the national average, which I think is 76 cents for every dollar. But I have to say, we've got room for improvement. In Washington County, it's only 73 cents for every dollar that a man earns. And so we've got to keep working at it. You bring us together, highlighting the issues, highlighting women's successes. It's just such a really positive thing. And I want to thank you so much for all that you're doing for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm excited to see what else we get to do together.
Me too.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll be right back in just a few minutes.